Welcome to the 3D Animation Hub! So one of the most basic things to animate is actually one of the hardest things to animate, in my opinion at least, and that's a walk cycle. Usually this is one of the first body mechanic exercises you're given when you're studying animation, and just like the bouncing ball, it kind of becomes your foundation for a lot of things. And so in this video, we're gonna dive deep. I'm gonna show you guys how to animate a walk cycle, and I try and make it as consumable as possible. And so if you appreciate that, make sure to smash that like button, help rank this video higher with the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump in. Okay, so I'm gonna take this into 3 steps to help me simplify it for you guys. So what a walk cycle consists of is 9 poses. First, you create 4, the first one being contact, the second being a down pose, the third being the passing pose, and the 4 being the up pose. That's essentially all you have to remember, and you just have to remember that order. Contact, down, pass, up. And so in the second step, what you're doing is you're reversing those poses. And so the 5th pose is the contact again, except this time it is reverse contact. And so it is the exact same pose you had on frame 1, except it's completely reversed. So if the right foot was forward, now the left foot is forward. And I'll talk about how you guys can do that later in this video. But essentially what's happening is you're going from contact down, pass up, to reverse contact, reverse down, reverse pass, and reverse up. And so that's step 2. You just reverse the first 4 poses you created. And the third step is what you actually do is you bring your pose from frame 1, your original contact pose, and you bring it all the way to the very end of your cycle. And now you have a total of 9 poses. So we're going to be making this walk cycle with Mulan, which is a rig from Character Rigs. They were gracious enough to actually provide this rig to me. And so I'll have the link to their website and to their Facebook page down in the description for you guys. Now, I don't have any sort of affiliate link for their website or for their character, but they did provide this rig to me for free. Just full disclosure. Now, this cycle in particular is going to be 25 frames. So go ahead and change your timeline to 25. Make sure your arms are in FK and your head control is in either world space or the master space. Now, if you don't know what that means, it just means that when you move your chest, your head doesn't actually rotate with your chest. So it only rotates when you rotate your world control, your master control. So first things first, we make our contact pose. This is where both feet are touching the ground. Our torso rotates opposite to the legs, meaning if the left leg is forward, then the right side of the torso will be rotated forward, and the right arm with it. The hips rotating on the y-axis, leaning with the leg that's in the front. And now that we got our contact pose, we're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it to frame 25. We're probably going to be doing this a few more times throughout this tutorial. You really want to make sure your first and your last frames are exactly the same. Now, take the same contact pose that you just made and put it on frame 13 as well. Frame 13 is pretty much the halfway point between 1 and 25. And now what you want to do is reverse it. So what I'm doing here is copying the keys on the timeline from the left foot and then pasting it on the right foot. So I'm just going back and forth, going and copying from frame 1 and pasting everything on frame 13 on the opposite side of the body. And I'm just making my way up to the cog and upwards, reversing everything in the attribute editor, except the translate Y. This is important. You don't want to reverse the translate Y because it's the up and down in your character. So for example, let's say the cog has a translate X value of 10. On our reverse contact pose on frame 13, I'm changing that 10 to negative 10. And let's say our translate Y has 10 as well. I'm going to leave that on the reverse pose because it's translate Y. You don't really want to be touching translate Y here. Your main focus should be translate X and Z. The next pose we're going to be making is the down pose. And as the name suggests, this is the lowest point the character will be. You can measure your ups and your downs with the cog's translate Y value in the graph editor. So in this pose, the front foot is flat and the back foot is lifting up heel first. So in this position, the cog is translating on the x-axis. In this case, the screen left leg is forward and the character is going forward. And so the weight of the character is shifting onto the screen left leg. And so the cog translates to screen left to balance out the character's center of gravity. Passing pose. In this passing pose, the forward leg is now under the body. with the back leg, or the character's screen right leg in our case, now in the process of passing the screen left leg. Hence the name passing pose. It's one leg passing the other. So in this passing pose, the cog is slightly higher than the contact pose, the pose on frame 1. And since all the character's weight is now on the screen left leg, the body is shifted even more towards screen left side to once again balance out the character. The spine is at this point probably the most straight in regards to rotation, since the hip is fairly straight. And so if you guys remember, the spine is twisting the opposite direction of the leading foot. So if the right foot is forward, the left side of the spine, making it all the way up to the left shoulder, is forward if the right leg is forward. And so in this case, the legs are in the middle, and so the chest is pretty much flat out in regards to rotations. The up pose. This is now the highest point the character reaches in this cycle, with the back leg extending back and the forward leg still in the air, moving its way to the reverse contact pose. With the screen right leg forward, the hip now rotates accordingly, so the screen right side is now ahead of the screen left side. And also here the cog is translating on the x-axis, making its way back to the middle because we're about to hit the reverse contact pose. And so from then on it just repeats, except it'll be mirrored. Alrighty. Before we hop into Spline, what we have to do is we have to make sure that our character is in a cycle. First thing we're going to do is select everything. Then we're going to go ahead and select everything in the graph editor. Go to View and click on Infinity. This is just to show you that the before and after in the graph editor, to make sure that you can see what's happening before and afterwards. And I'm actually going to go ahead and increase our range to 25 for now. Once the cycle is done, once we have all the poses in, what you're supposed to do is make your timeline 24 frames, even though your last pose is on frame 25. You want to have one frame less, so there isn't a repeating frame. So when it cuts, it jumps to frame 1 again, instead of it being, you know, the same pose, and then the same pose again, and then it's continuing. That'll just make it seem like the character pauses for a second when it's not supposed to. So just a reminder, View Infinity, just so you can see. And up next, you want to go to Curves, go to Pre-Infinity Curve, Cycle, and then Curves again, Post-Infinity, Cycle. And now, if you guys can see, let's go ahead and show you an example. So let's go to the cog, and I'm going to focus on this. And as you guys can see, it's just a continuous cycle of that graph. It just keeps continuing. And so that's essentially how you make a cycle. So you make sure the first and last poses are the same, and you cycle everything. And you try and fade it nicely into that last pose and fade out of the first frame very nicely. All right, now let's take a look at this spline. So this is what it looks like when we hit spline. And holy shit. Yeah, this is big oof. So let's go ahead and break down some of the issues that we see here. So I haven't done any cleaning yet, and as you can see, but the main thing that stands out to me is the constant popping of the knees. So just pay attention to the knees just going in and out of popping. Pop, 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 pop. So that's not gonna work for us. So I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at all these poppings. So we got a pop. I'm looking at her right leg right now. It pops here. This is fixable. So it pops on frame 11 and then kind of pops here around frame 22 as well. All right, now let's focus on this leg. So I don't like this pop at frame 11 as well. Frame 11 pop. So here it goes straight, bent, straight again. So that's another pop at frame 23 and then bent again. So it looks like this. That's the foot. All right, one more thing I want to do is I want to keep track of the heel of the foot to see what sort of path we have for the heel. So let me just draw a dot here. All right, so this is the kind of path we have. If you guys follow the dots, which is almost good, it's almost perfect. We kind of want something similar to this. This is the kind of path we want, something that goes, straight across, and then comes back in a loop like that, and it just keeps looping, just like that. But right now we got something that's like, so we're almost there. We just gotta go clean that up. All right, let's hop into Maya and I'll show you guys how I'm gonna fix this. So first off, I think I'm gonna start off with the cog, the center of gravity right here. I'm gonna go ahead and pop into the graph editor. This is super important to see exactly what's going on. As you guys can see, we already have it cycled. And so we're gonna go ahead and see exactly what this is. So this is the rotate X. And so what I'm gonna do here is I kind of want it to flow. I don't want it to be just flat at any point. So I'm gonna click this and drag this down slightly. Actually, let me see what kind of difference it's making here. Okay, there we go. So I'm just dragging this back slightly, and it kind of created this little entanglement over here, and I'm just gonna straighten this out. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna select that too. I'm just holding shift right now, and then I'm gonna drag this upwards until it's smoothed out. Now we're just heading over to translate Z, and translate Z is our forward and backwards in this situation. And so I actually don't even want any forward and backwards in this because the cycle is just in place. The character is just walking in place. So I'm actually going to go ahead and how much of a difference is this making? Really, not much. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this and delete this, just so it's just flattened out. There's no forward and backward movement on the cog. Gonna make our way to translate Y, and let's see. Right, okay, so it looks pretty good right now. We might do another pass on this, but all I'm gonna do here is just I'm gonna try and fix these entanglements again. So I'm just holding shift right now while I'm selecting these. Oops, just gonna select these handles and pull up, just so it's a little bit smoother. And so that helps our cycle run a little bit smoother as well. And you know what, I'm actually gonna break these. And what I mean by that is I'm gonna click this button, and now these ones won't affect this line, won't affect this line anymore. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up, and that looks a lot smoother. Going to make our way translate translate X. So same thing. We don't really. What's translate X doing? Oh, it's the left and right. Yeah. So I'm gonna smooth this out as well. But let's see what we're doing here. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna just to create some delay and just some texture. I'm gonna move this one down a little bit. Gonna make my way down to this one. Move this one up a little bit. Now we're gonna go ahead and click the corner ones, and we're gonna smooth it out like we've been doing. There we go, that looks pretty smooth. And so let's see what that cog looks like now. So I'm just focusing on the cog, and so okay, it looks pretty good to me. Let's look at it from the front. All right, next up, I'm gonna go ahead and click on my hip, and let's go through the hip one by one in the graph editor and see what we can do there. See what we see what we can fix. And so I'm at the rotate Y right now, and I already, which one's the rotate Y? Rotate Y is shifting side to side. So I'm gonna go ahead and try and fix this a little bit. I'm gonna break these handles right here by clicking this button again. And now gonna drag this down so it's a little bit more straight, and oops, gonna select these ones and bring this up a little bit just so it's a little bit smoother. And I'm actually gonna go ahead and delete this and delete this and bring this a little bit higher just so it's a little bit smoother. I'm actually gonna go ahead and delete these two as well. So a little bit higher. There we go. All right, that looks good to me. We're gonna see what else we can fix here. Everything else looks good. So let's go ahead and get into the spine real quick. What do we got here? We got rotate X, and just to add again a little bit of texture, I'm gonna bring this higher. Gonna bring this lower so it smooths out. Bring this lower, Oops, just want to select this one. And this one lower, and bring this one lower. Okay, nothing else on that controller. Next spline, again, rotate Y. So I'm gonna bring this higher to smooth it out a little bit. Bring this up a little bit lower. Bring this down. And finally the last spline, rotate Y again. And the rest actually looks good to me. All right, now maybe we can start tackling the legs. Let's see what we can do here. Start with this foot. Translate X. It's side to side. I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this one. So it's a little bit smoother. Not sure if I'm a big fan of that, so I'm gonna smooth that one out. Smooth this one out. And I'm gonna straighten this one out because it's kind of looking a little twisted right now. Translate Y. So this is just the up and down. Let's straighten this out. And I'm gonna straighten this out. You might actually have to go ahead and redo some of this as well once we change the foot movement. I just want to see how this looks once the graph is all cleaned up. So this is the rotate X, which is the forward and backwards. So we're gonna go ahead and see what we can do here. I don't see a problem with that. Let's move on to the next foot. Let's see what's going on there. Translate X. This is kind of being disruptive. There we go. And again, I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of this sticking out so much. So I'm going to smooth that out. Make these a little straighter. Translate Z. Straighten them out. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, so there's still a lot of popping, and we can fix that. That's not a problem. The hip's looking pretty steady. It looks pretty good. And we just gotta fix up the arms, and once we have the legs fixed and the popping fixed and retime the feet a little bit, we can go ahead and start touching up the armor. And then we can take a look at it again. So let's just go ahead and try and fix these knee pops. Okay. So the foot's going from bent to straight to bent to straight again. And so let's try and remedy that. Okay, I think how I'm gonna remedy this is just to add another roll here. So I'm gonna increase the roll here so it's not popping. So it's bent, bent, bent. Then it kind of straightens out a little bit. And let's set another key here and actually make this still a little bent, just slightly, so it's not clicking. There we go. Okay, it looks a lot better. But you know what? Let me get rid of the bend altogether. So for here, I'm actually going to try and get rid of the bend altogether. Let me make this 0. Oops. I'm going to make it very minimal. And when it comes to here, I'm going to get rid of this completely. And so it's going to be bent, straight, 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 straight. And then it just bends into this pose. And even here, this doesn't have to be so dramatic. I could bring this back a little bit. Just trying to make this feel like less of a pop. There we go. Ooh, this feels like a pop as well. What's going on here? All right, so let's see. Okay, maybe we can actually keep the foot up in the air a lot longer here. Let's see how this looks like. Okay, that actually looks a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that pose and paste it, frame 10. There we go, frame 10 on the opposite foot. Paste that. There we go. So let's see how that looks now. I'm just keeping the right foot in mind. Okay, so I actually changed it. So instead of having it over here, I brought the foot back. And so it still looks like it's making its way to that last pose on frame 25. So now again, I'm going to copy this, take it to the opposite foot, frame 10, paste it. Now let's see what it looks like. Okay, that looks a little bit sharper. I like that a little bit more. Now let's clean it up. So we have going forward, and then it kind of straightens out here. Maybe I can bring this even lower. Yeah, I actually like that. All right, again, copy, go to the opposite foot, frame 10, paste, just so we have the same foot positioning. Now let's see what that right leg looks like now. Much better. I like that a lot more. And another thing I wanted to do is, for that same right leg, I actually wanted it to turn to this pose a lot quicker. I want it to be, oops, let's go here. I want it to go from this pose to completely flat on the floor in 2 frames at most. So now it kind of looks like this. So it just hits a lot sharper. I feel like there's a little bit of jitter here. Oh, what's happening here? That's right there. That's the jitter. If you guys pay attention to the heel, it goes up, then down, then up again, and we really don't want that. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and delete frame 12. And so gonna keep the leg straight, and then I'm gonna set a key on it, and for frame 13 I'm going to make this a lot less bent, so there's a lot less clicking here. There we go. Now let's see how that looks. Cool, that looks pretty good to me. All right, now let's go on and tackle the right foot. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and copy what I did with this foot and just start pasting it out in the opposite foot. So for frame 1, for the opposite foot, it's gonna be frame 13. So I'm gonna go to frame 1, that foot, go to frame 13 and paste. And then I'm just gonna continue this all the way through. So frame 3 would be frame 15 for the other foot. Okay, from the side, this looks pretty good to me, but I think from the front, something wonky happened. I think when I pasted the same keys to the other foot, it copied the translate X, but it didn't copy it how I wanted it to. So now the translate, wow, yeah, there it is. The translate X should not look like that. Let's take a look at this foot. Okay. So let's go ahead and fix the translate X on this foot again. Let's see what we can do here. First of all, she's a lady, so what I want her to do is I want this foot to be a little bit closer to the center before she lifts it off. So I'm going to select these two and move them a little bit closer. Okay, and for this, I'm going to keep it around the same level. Now she can press auto on this. There we go. So now she can lift it up, so more to the right, so she can pass the foot. But when she puts it down, I actually want it to be closer to the other side. So I'm gonna click and drag this all the way here. And so I'm going to delete these two and go ahead and drag this one also down. So when she's passing this foot, I actually want it to be closer. So actually, there we go. That looks better to me. And for this, I'll have this already making its way more towards the center. Smaller. Okay. There we go. Okay. And the foot kind of slides back over there, and I don't like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring these down. And bring this one down as well. Now let's see how that looks from the front. That looks a lot better. Now we're gonna go ahead and make our way to the arms because that's about the only thing we haven't really touched yet. So let's go ahead and start with the clavicle control first. Select this bad boy. Go to the graph editor, and yeah, this graph's not looking very pretty, is it? Okay, what I'm gonna do now is starting with rotate Z. I'm just gonna bring this up, try and smooth these out a little bit. Rotate Y, rotate X. Again, gonna try to smooth this out a little bit. Okay, that looks good. On the translate, I'm gonna ease this in. I'm actually gonna break this and flatten that out. Break this and flatten that out. Translate Y, same thing. I'm just gonna ease this in, ease this in. Okay, I'm gonna break this one and flatten. Try and flatten that out. Go to this side, fix it on this side, break it, and there we go. Let's ease. I'm gonna delete these two actually. There we go. That looks a lot smoother. This one too. All right. Now, we're gonna make our way down one by one and just go through these and try and clean them out a little bit. Make our way down to the elbow, same thing, just keep repeating and try and smooth these curves out. Oh, what's going on here? You know what? Maybe you don't need this one. There we go. There we go. And lastly, we have the wrist control. We're gonna smooth that out as well. All the translates, there's nothing on them. And we just gotta make our way to the rotates. All right, now we just gotta do the same exact thing for the other arm. Just gotta smooth out all the curves. All right, so I got this bad boy up on Sync Sketch. This is what we have for our second spline. And right away, so the popping of the feet is, in my opinion, fixed now. You could always polish things further, but I think this is good enough for the sake of this tutorial. The only thing that really stands out to me here would probably be the arms. That's the one thing I can still go in and tweak in my opinion. And I haven't really touched the fingers either, so I could add some secondary animation to the fingers for the third spline. Now let's just go ahead and pop into front view. Let's see if it looks okay from there as well. All right, so we got the front view here, and boy oh boy, it definitely looked a lot better from the side view. Now again, the feet seem okay. The few things that stand out to me is I think maybe the hip is swaying maybe a little too much side to side, so maybe I'll tone that down. I'll actually be retiming it as well to make the hip drop. Did I say that right? To make the hip drop. To make the hip drop as she pretty much puts her weight down. So instead of it being a linear path, you know, this being the hip. So instead of that, it'll probably be something like, so it's more like a drop rather than a curve up and down. That's just a bit more realistic. And another thing that really stood out to me is the hands here. They're very jaggedy. Like if you pay attention to the screen right hand, which would be this hand, both hands actually, but it comes forward and it kind of goes out like this in like 2 frames. A little too fast for my liking. Yeah, I don't really like that at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and tweak the hands, tweak the arms, and I'll also be tweaking the cog control, and again making the Y translate, the green one. Pretend this is green. I can't really draw green on green, but pretend that's green. So making the Y translate look more like this rather than a curve like that. All right, let's hop back into Maya and see what we can do. Again, in the last spline, I went pretty much frame by frame, making sure there were no knees popping, and I made sure everything is easing in and easing out, everything that needs to at least. I went ahead and made sure the curve on the feet looks something like this, and I adjusted the hip a bit to reduce the sway left and right. In this new spline is that the arm, you want to create something like an infinity sign with the arm, where when it's going this way, it's going up, and then on the way back, it actually comes down in an arc and then goes back up. And so if you guys pay attention here, it goes down, or it starts going up, and then on the way back, it starts going down. And so it goes up, and then it makes its way back up, creating something like an infinity sign with your hand. And yeah, lastly, I went in and tried to reduce the amount of sway on the shoulder pads. It's turning out pretty good. And as you guys have already noticed, I can't draw fast enough. The feathers up there, I just added a bit of a balance, and it had several controllers, and all I did was I just offset them. So I brought them all down at the same time, and then what I did was I delayed the controllers here by, let's say, 1 frame, and then delayed the controllers here by another frame. And then I offset both feathers, where one bounces down about a frame or 2 faster than the other one. And that helped me not to create any sort of tweening between the 2 feathers. I think that's about it for this tutorial, guys. So in the description of this video, I have a link to Gumroad where I'll be uploading helpful templates and guides I made to go with this tutorial. You'll be able to download this entire lesson so you can watch it whenever you want ad-free, and I'll also be sharing all the play blasts and some of the key points we talked about in this video in text form, so you can always look back when you need a reminder. And on top of all that, you'll also be helping the channel. Now, speaking of helping the channel, I want to give a huge thank you to my beautiful Patreons. Thank you guys so much for your continuous support of the channel. Now, with all that out of the way, I hope you learned something from this video. Happy animating, and I will see you guys in the next video.